When Kura Games released Wuthering Waves, it was touted as the Genshin killer, another gacha open-world RPG with a constantly evolving and growing large cast of characters. 6 months after release, I wanted to see if Wuthering Waves lived up to what people saw as the next biggest thing. So we put a poll up on my channel to see what people were thinking, and man, in only 2 days, we got a lot of opinions from the community. With more than 10,000 votes and a whole lot of comments, what we found was pretty interesting. Oh, and if you enjoy this type of content, leave a like on the video, and I might review community opinions more often. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and are enjoying the content, and thanks for watching it all. Enjoy the video. It's a 6-month anniversary since it came out. It came out 22nd of May, and I decided, you know what, I kind of want to see what people think about it. Now, just so it's clear, I have not actually really played Wuthering Waves. When it first came out, I downloaded it on launch day, and ran into a lot of the same performance issues that everyone else was having, so I put it down for a bit. Then they announced that they had fixed a lot of the issues, so then I decided, okay, I'll try hop back in. But when I did so, I ran into the exact same flickering issues. Now, it's been 6 months essentially since that happened. I thought it would be a pretty decent time to see what the community sentiment was and whether it was worth me trying to do it one more time, so I sent out this poll. There were basically the 4 options. Are you still playing? And if so, why have you stuck around? Is it the characters? Is it the story just being really great? Or is the gameplay actually really involving? Or did you just never start? There were 10,000 votes. This is one of maybe the most successful polls I've ever run on this channel, so thank you everyone for participating in that. I appreciate that. What we see here is actually really interesting, I think, because these were kind of the results that I expected. Let's start at the lowest one, 5%. 5% of all those people said that I don't know what Wuthering Waves is. Now, that kind of makes sense. I thought it'd be a little bit lower maybe, just because I feel like there was like a lot of crossover. Like I said before, it was kind of seen as like the quote-unquote Genshin killer, but there probably is a lot of casual people that maybe are just getting into the game, both Wuthering Waves or Genshin, that aren't really aware of any competition or anything really going on like that. The next highest was 13% still playing. We'll get into some of the reasons why throughout the comments, but just as the overview, 39% played for a bit but then stopped. This is the one I thought would be the biggest, not by a large margin, but just enough, because that's the one that I was a part of, is the played for a bit but stopped. And I probably would have kept going if it wasn't for the performance issues, but it was just so, I don't know, it was just so annoying. Like, it just, the flickering and all that, I just couldn't get over it. But then we have 43%. The most amount of people chose this option, knew about it, but never tried. That also does make sense to me, though. I understand, you know, it is such a big commitment, so I can't imagine a lot of people being like, oh yeah, let's just hop into this completely new game and see how it is. So we see that, so that's 87% of people. 87% don't play Wuthering Waves anymore. But let's see the why, because I think that that is a little bit more interesting, is seeing why some people have dipped or have decided to stay. Let's start with this top one, Aozora. As my primary reasons to sink into Genshin was lore. I heard people saying that while Wuthering Waves gameplay is fun and has more fan service, the story and lore are really bad. So I never really thought of getting into it. Top that with the fact that my laptop doesn't have enough memory for big games left. So yeah, this, I think, that latter part, I think is a very common sentiment. And this is not really a dig at Wuthering Waves per se. It's just kind of at games in general now, or at least like a lot of like open worlds, or like a lot of like some of the bigger game titles. They don't really try to optimize at all. And I genuinely, my big conspiracy is that some of these game companies are trying to make their games so big, so then you have less space to download other games. I think that's, once again, not a problem with Wuthering Waves, a bit of a side tangent. I think that having the games be a little bit more accessible would just help a lot, but hey, maybe it's necessary. Now let's address that first thing. Gameplay's fun and has fan service, but the story and lore are really bad. I wonder how many people, what percent of the player base is here for, like, let's just say just endgame content, like Spiral Abyss and stuff, or they're here for the actual story, or they're just here because it's a gacha game and they want to pull. The fact that there are a pretty decent amount of people that are saying, sure, Wuthering Waves might be really fun, but the story's boring and I can't get sunk into it. I think at the core of it, you can have all these expansion things, but if you don't have that core that people really want to attach to, then no one's really going to stick around for your game. And that can be like the make or break. Like, I'm basically making my decision if I hop into this game based on these opinions. And if I see a lot of people saying that, yeah, the story and lore are really bad, that's like one of the primary reasons I think to get into a game. Like, sure, by the end game, you're kind of just there for like the gameplay and whatnot, but at the end of the day, the story needs to hook people in. Let's see what people said in reply to this. Yeah, I kind of liked, but too much of the lore is just characters simping for the MC, and it annoyed me too bad. That's interesting. The story is very good late game, but otherwise it's bad. Not only is the lore bad, but the world building is boring, never feels real or connective with the player. Alias Undercover says the story gets better, but not necessarily good. Like, think of the first 6 acts, for instance. Act 4 is better than Act 1, but it's still very much info dumping. I decided to check in recently, and yup, even Mount Firmament is info dumping at times. Something Genshin doesn't do. It's one of the reasons why lore should stay in items and artifacts, and plot should be separate. Wuwa has a good story, but very bad execution. Interesting. That's actually something I never really considered. Maybe, yes, sure, it is an interesting world, an interesting story, but they're not conveying it in the way that it probably should be. I think that Genshin does a pretty decent job at segmenting how people approach the game, I guess, because let's just say that you don't want to read everything. You're kind of invested into the story, but not really. You can scroll and then skip any pages or any books, and if it does push the plot forward and you need to read it, they'll highlight the text and they'll tell you where to go. And I guess that Wuthering Waves hasn't been able to do that as well. And I think that especially in this live service era where you're trying to get people hooked over a really long amount of time, I don't think that you can afford to like have a boring beginning, because that's what people are going to experience first, no matter where they come into the game's lifespan. Let's just say that you started playing Genshin year 1. The people coming in at year 5 are still going to get that same year 1 experience, essentially. They're going to have to go through the same story. So if that story and that progression throughout those systems at the beginning isn't fun or engaging or something that people want to stick around for, they're not going to wait until the very end for it to get good. Unless like all of their friends are being like, no, yeah, you should really play this game, don't worry, it'll get good. And they keep pushing. Like literally, it's just social pressure maybe is the only reason to stick around. And I think that's, you really should, as a live service game, stick the landing at the beginning and then maybe get kind of ass later on. You know what I mean? Like just heavily invest into the story and making it dead interesting at the beginning. Genesis Supernova says, I downloaded it on release itself, but soon left, so some of my points might be untrue. Despite the trash launch, I still continued, but my mobile couldn't handle the game well, and I had no other alternatives, had to delete it. I also have my entrance exams in a few months, so I have to grind for that too. The story's overall pretty mid. Act 5 and 6 were kind of good though. There aren't many great character interactions, and some have yet to even appear in the main storyline despite having a solid background. Everyone is glazing Rover, which is pretty good, but they sometimes exaggerate a lot. Not to mention the devs are forcing almost every other character to be in love with Rover. Storekeeper, Camille. This is a common thing, and it's so interesting because I feel like in general people do enjoy being the MC, right? And like being like this chosen one narrative, you know, all the fawning that comes along with it. But it seems like this is just too much, and I feel like the way that Genshin does it is like kind of funny, kind of cheeky. The only character that I have kind of came to like from the entire game is Jiyan, just because he has a good story that doesn't involve the MC and a great character overall. Characters feel hollow outside the story, and their designs rely more on fan service. Sometimes it's work, but not at all times. The music is subpar. Interesting. Music is subpar, but they've improved since 1.3, and there isn't proper world building or lore in general. Sound is the basic fundamental unit in Solaris 3. Wait, sound? Bro, I really don't know this game. Sound is like one of the elements. That's crazy. And I want to see it more expanded on in terms of lore, as well as setting up the antagonists. The Fractitus, is that, dude, I don't even know. Organization's goal are still unclear. And before some random Genshin hater comes in the comments saying, but Wuwa world building and story is at least much more greater than Genshin back in 1.0. Genshin had already started its world building from the get-go by spreading all the lore for upcoming regions and the end through books, character stories, artifacts, and weapons in general. Hence why Genshin has so many theories since the start. Meanwhile, the most interesting Wuwa theories I have seen are about Scar's goal of, I guess, infusing humans with TDs. Y'all tell me in the comments if that made sense. For gameplay, Genshin is more reaction based while Wuwa is hack and slash, and the latter is pretty much more appealing for the audience. Personally, I like both types of content. One more reason I think people are trying out Wuwa is because they had offered free 5 stars, more fan service. Gacha is free to play friendly with quick implementing of the feedbacks from the community. For that, Kuro deserves massive W, as well as better quality of life and rewards. Certainly better than Genshin back then, although I must say that with the upcoming region, Riskasida, and the character designs, I'm pretty hyped up for the game. Interesting. And people need to stop saying like Genshin is just cash cow game and Hoyo is a greedy company looting the game. They didn't have to go this hard in music and lore if they didn't give a crap about the game. This is so interesting. Quick implementing the feedback. I do think that Genshin rested on its laurels for a little bit too long. I think that it got really early success, big big success really early on, so they didn't have to try as hard in certain departments. I've got to agree that where they say they didn't have to go this hard in music and lore if they didn't give a crap about the game, and if they're greedy and horrendous, the game wouldn't have survived after all these years. Yeah, I'll say as well, the fan service, early on, I kind of noticed that as well. I think it is a little bit aggressive. Like, hold on. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people always comment on the fan service of this game. I feel like I wouldn't be able to actually just comment on it just like based on this. But I do want to give big ups to the Genshin music. They do go pretty hard with it. It is such a part of it that like really always shines through. So I think that like that's like a pretty good thing.
Hey, if you're watching this video right now, chances are you are not subscribed, because 100% of people that watch this channel are not subscribed. Subscribe now.
Alright, let's keep moving on here. I really enjoyed Wuwa, but once I had completed the quest and I had to wait around for the update, the mundane routine of login, daily spend energy, log out, sit in, and I'm already doing that in Genshin and Zenless, and I just didn't really want to add another game to that cycle. This is, I think, a big one, at least personally. Even if I do really enjoy it, it means adding another thing to this. Login, daily, spend energy, log out. Like, I literally just did it at the top of this stream just so I could get the primos. Once you start adding a lot of gacha games to the pile and you're doing that, like this person, Daniel Ra, is doing for already 2 games, Genshin and Zenless, I really enjoyed Zenless, but already thinking about having to like juggle my time with all of that, it's like, damn, I feel like that's going to be just a bit too much. And I feel like, once again, with live service games, they have to balance that, especially in the early days. If there's so much competition and already established competition, people aren't going to be willing to wait for the updates, or at least they have to be really good. And you've got to fill in that time in between really nicely. Otherwise, it's too easy to be like, oh, well, I'm already doing it. Oh, hello, Karage. But yeah, I personally just don't want to add to the cycle. Either way, I just think that you need, if it's a live service, you got to keep the updates flowing. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bit difficult for people to want to stay on. Kitsu Iteza creates. I played Wuthering Waves for like 15 minutes and instantly got bored of it. And that just happens sometimes. Here we go. I think this is the first positive. Wuthering Waves is honestly just more cinematic, and with the atmosphere and background and the environment, it's just so eye-catching. The gameplay is amazing too. Denny's. Career Games is great at being attentive about their player base's criticisms, but even then, the games felt boring to play after a while. I mean, listen, you can be some of the best developers, but if you're kind of developing and you're not really fixing the core loops, and you're just kind of like patching the little quality of life things, yeah, I don't think that's gonna be enough. K Superstar. I love everything about Wuwa. The characters touch that deep parts of me Genshin never touched. I don't know what they mean exactly by that, but the setting, the atmosphere, I'm so in love all this time. Still playing both games, but my heart definitely belongs to Wuwa, even though I've been in Genshin for years. That's cool to see. They resonated with the characters. I think that's pretty nice. Cassian. Started playing 1.0, tried to stick around till 1.1, but the game just kept being a glitchy, crashing mess, so I gave up. I'd like to go back, but I don't want to experience that all over again. So you've got to make sure that launch goes crazy. You've got to make sure that those problems are fixed, and clearly they've like listened and they've tried their best, but like, I don't know. If it's fundamental problems like that as well, like for me with the flickering and stuff, why would I stick around? Why would I need to? Storage couldn't handle it. There you go. Played for a few weeks. Got so boring. Computer kept crashing. Story didn't hook me. Is that a miraculous thing? I try to keep playing it, but my PC hates it. There you go. I do enjoy it, but I get overwhelmed with how behind I am. That's another thing. And then my brain goes, nah, I go back to Genshin. I'm caught up. One gacha game addiction is not for me. Played it when it first came out. Got bored of it pretty quickly. Came back in the shopkeeper patch, though, and have been pretty impressed. They improved mobile performance quite a bit, and the new areas have been quite good. Interesting. Story is still lacking a lot, though. I keep hearing this. And only a few characters, e.g. Alto and Jian, are particularly likable, since most of them are just awkwardly in love with Rover and like any other personality. That's the one thing I keep hearing a lot. That's like, I think that like, if I had to distill these comments right now, don't have the space, don't have the performance. I don't want to add it to the list of gacha games that I play because there's just too many now. Story is just maybe not as great, and everyone is in love with Rover. What's up with that? Still playing, absolutely love it. I love how people really thought this garbage would be a Genshin killer. There it is. Let's see the replies to this. I'm curious about people, because this is the first comment I think that was maybe the most critical, but the least constructive. Okay, Star Rail, yeah. Garbage is a strong word. It's not garbage, but people definitely hyped this way too much, and their own community gaslit themselves as the victims. Strong but not inaccurate. Copying isn't a problem, but they went as far as copying even the bad features of Genshin that Hoyo themselves abandoned in later games. Playing it unironically felt like playing a game made by ChatGPT. Real.
If you made it this far and are interested in supporting the channel, memberships are available for only $1 USD. For that, you get a shout out at the end of every video. Join now!
It really does seem like a copy paste. It's literally just Genshin but retextured and a dodge button. That's more annoying than anything. Ooh, Akuma, this person disagrees with you. We will listen to the community. That is one of the best things that I've heard about this game. I have heard that a lot. I think that the biggest lesson, Akuma, that Goyo can learn is listen to the community. As the game gets older, the people that are here casually will leave, and the people that are diehards will slowly not become diehards if you don't listen to the community. Wuwa, I think, its biggest strength so far that I've seen is that listening to community. Laser, still playing. I play for the lore and the exploration. I love 200% all areas. I'm just walking around and looking at some secret hidden stuff I found in some place. I actively play Wuwa and haven't missed a day since release. I'm very proud of myself. I finished like every quest, except that, and I'm so excited for it. They like it. I love Wuwa. The gameplay and exploration is so smooth and fun. The world building is fantastic. However, it sometimes feels like a dating sim, and while I did love Shopkeeper and Rover, it feels less special when every character wants the Rover romantically. I think one of the biggest complaints for sure, one of the most substantial, is why does every character love Rover? Honestly, I will probably only play Wuwa for their characters. They look amazing, and also it's another game to satisfy my gambling addiction while saving for Mawika and Arlecchino, Sig, as well as Sunday on Honkai. There should be an option named Going to Play. With Wuwa coming to PlayStation 5, I'm going to enjoy every second of it. Oh, there you go. There you go. Stop because my laptop couldn't handle it, and I just needed to free space. I got some bugs due to not being able to load a lot properly, and I just grew tired. Also, the problem I saw that the power creep will come fast since there is nothing special about the elements. They just color damage, numbers, and echoes. I continued playing Zenless, Genshin, and Honkai though, but I now also quit all three of them for the reasons of free space and less free time. The only one I would consider going back to is HSR Honkai, but the story's better than those two in my opinion, and Honkai is just an easier game to play by its nature of being turn-based. But for now, the only gachas I have are Limbus Company and Project Sekai. That's actually pretty interesting. Couldn't handle a fourth game that prefers daily investment. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm forced myself to play every single day and do every single event. When one of these games officially ends, I'll pick it up. Laggy as hell. I'm not buying a 1,000 pound computer just to play some gacha game. Damn, lag situation unbearable. After all of this, I think the common denominators really have to be the execution in terms of even performance was not that great for some people, and that's what turned them away. While the gameplay, it was great, but it's not enough to offset some of those issues. And I think that's kind of really interesting. I think that's really interesting. Maybe at the end of the day, they need to fix some of those more base issues. It seems like they do have a lot to work on. I think that they've got the framework pretty decently. They just need to work on making their base, their foundations a little bit stronger. So then those people in the onboarding process that are coming in for the first time can have a bit of a better experience with it. So they don't just feel like leaving straight away. To round out my little Wuthering Waves video, kind of give it an ending here. I think that once I start hearing that they're improving the story, I think that the gameplay could be interesting enough for me to come back, but I think that they need to fix some of the fan service things. I think they probably need to fix, for me most importantly, optimization and performance issues. Once that's done, maybe I'm checking it out. And shout out to Bunuhead, Jeja Buns, Wachel, Superstar Rules, and Davin for supporting the channel. If you support the channel by becoming a member for $1 USD, you also get a shout out at the end of every video, just like everyone here. Thanks for watching.